Hey guys, you're watching Tech Edit. I'm Basil, this is the Google Pixel 8a and this is the Poco F6 Pro. And over 100 of you guys voted for a comparison between these two phones, and I can see why, because both of them cost around £500, but they excel at very different things. The Pixel 8a is an all-purpose do-it-all phone, wireless charging, great cameras, stock software and 7 years of updates, plus fun Google styling. The Poco F6 Pro is a value champion. Snapdragon 8 Gen 2, up to 1 terabyte of storage, metal and glass design, and lightning fast 120-watt charging. But they also kind of encroach on each other's territory. The Tensor G3 is powerful enough for some decent gaming, and the F6 Pro's camera is actually better than I expected, and it actually beats the Pixel for low light video. So could both these phones be all-rounders in their own right? I'm going to dive into this comparison in a lot more detail in a second. Before I do, if you're not already subscribed to the channel, please do. It's how you stay on top of everything that I do. And also I'll be posting polls so that you can decide which videos you want to see in the future. Kicking off with the design of the Pixel 8a, it looks playful. Meanwhile, the Poco F6 Pro looks like it means business comparatively. Both phones have glass fronts, though only the F6 Pro has a glass back, giving it a more premium feel in the hand. The Pixel's quite chunky. Now, if the Poco F6 Pro is Lego, the Pixel 8a feels more like Duplo, kind of kid's toy-like, and that isn't necessarily bad, super playful. The metal sides also do feel rich, and I prefer the Pixel 8a's color options, but the F6 Pro's frosted glass back and less rounded corners feel more grown up. The F6 Pro is available in black or white, and both have a shimmering pattern, though I do like the white one a bit more. While the F6 Pro is slimmer, it's got a bigger screen, so is a bigger phone and weighs around 20 grams more. Both phones have buttons on the right, a USB-C port below, and dual speakers, one bottom firing. So when you're holding them sideways, whichever phone you're using, you'll cover up one of the two speakers when gaming, for example. Pop out the SIM slot and the F6 Pro takes two physical SIM cards. The Pixel, meanwhile, takes one physical SIM and an eSIM, so in their own ways, each is a dual SIM phone. If you're wondering about durability, the Pixel 8a's IP67 water resistant versus the IP54 splash resistant F6 Pro, making the Pixel more hardy to the elements. But that said, the F6 Pro does have a pre-fitted screen protector, a case in the box, and Gorilla Glass 5 on the front versus the Gorilla Glass 3 Pixel 8a. I do prefer the F6 Pro given what I do on phones, watch, game, type emails. I have big hands, so I appreciate a big screen and a bigger phone. But there's no doubt the Pixel 8a has fun styling and it's packed with charm. Now, another reason I prefer the F6 Pro is because of the bezels. The Pixel 8a has a thick black border while the Poco F6 Pro has super slim bezels. I also, like I said, prefer the bigger screen of the F6 Pro, but also it's more square shape. It's just a bit more practical. The Pixel 8a screen does look good. The pure display quality is decent, 6.1 inches, 20:9 aspect ratio, and a wide full HD resolution with 430 pixels in every inch of screen. It's also a 120Hz OLED panel and it looks great. But the Poco F6 Pro's specs read better on paper. 6.67 inches with a 4000 nit peak brightness when displaying HDR content, 1200 nits full screen brightness, so that's high brightness mode, outdoors, etc. And it's also sharper with a 1330 by 3200 resolution, giving you 526 pixels in every inch of screen, and it also has HDR10 Plus support, plus Dolby Vision, the latter missing on the Pixel. Out of the box, both phones support Netflix HDR playback, and the Poco F6 Pro adds that Dolby Vision with Netflix certification as well, which you don't always get on more affordable phones. Now, fans of smaller screens with easier to reach corners will think the Pixel is more comfortable, and anyone who wants size, quality, a more flagship grade viewing experience, the F6 Pro is definitely your choice. I fall in that latter camp. So design and screen, both good, whichever you prefer is up to you, but I personally am leaning towards the F6 Pro. As for the cameras, while I expected the Google Pixel AA to win out every single time, in reality it did for photos, but for videos, the Poco F6 Pro actually edged ahead in a few scenarios, which was interesting. The Pixel AA has a 64 megapixel main camera with an f1.9 aperture and a 1/1.73 inch sensor and OIS with that lens. There's also a 13 megapixel ultra-wide camera alongside it. What really helps Google phones though is Google's photography tuning, which is famously good, reliable, and tends to beat out that I've seen from Poco devices. The F6 Pro's primary camera is actually a step up on paper with a larger sensor, 1/1.55 inches, and an f1.6 aperture, so it's a bit faster with that lens. Lens also has OIS. That said, the ultra-wide camera is a step down. Like the Pixel, it is fixed focus, but it has a lower 8 megapixel resolution. So for photos, I almost always prefer the Pixel's shot. Google's color science is great, especially at the 8A's price. Poco's photo processing has improved a lot for 2024. In bright environments, it applies quite a bit of HDR, more so than the Pixel. You can see from this backlit shot of a sign, it's brighter on the F6 Pro, and it also produces a more saturated, vibrant shot, though more tastefully so than past Pocos I've tested. If you like more natural styling, you will prefer the Pixel's colors. I do, but I also didn't mind the Poco F6 Pro's pictures at all. When the lights drop, it's also interesting, Google brightens up shadows a lot more than the F6 Pro, which I prefer in certain situations. So it's not a straight out win for the Pixel if you're a fan of what you see is what you get photography. The Pixel brightens things up. The F6 Pro's lens does have a wider aperture and the sensor is larger. That said, it's also more prone to lens flare in bright environments and overexposing when there's too much light flooding a scene. So typically good daylight shots, the Pixel does edge ahead. I was also impressed that the F6 Pro's zoom keeps pace with the Pixel up to the max 8x digital zoom. Zoomed in Pixel shots do have better color accuracy, so that's a theme here, but the F6 Pro's photos are a bit crisper at 8x. The ultra-wide on the Pixel AA though tends to edge ahead every single time, producing more croppable shots and bringing that color balance that I tend to prefer into that expansive view. What surprised me more than photos though was videos, and specifically nighttime videos shot on the Poco F6 Pro were much better than those shot on the Pixel 8A. While for stills, Google can apply computational magic to get more out of that small sensor. For video, its weaknesses are really exposed, and the F6 Pro delivers better noise handling and overall video quality, with both able to shoot up to 4K resolution, 60 frames per second. In bright environments, I do prefer Google's colors for video, but appreciate the stabilization from both phones. And as a result, if I'm picking up these phones for stills, I might choose a Pixel, but for video, the Poco is just more reliable across different situations. I prefer the Pixel selfies and general pictures of people. The F6 Pro flattens faces and you can lose character and characteristics, whereas the Pixel A is more true to life there. So while I expected the Poco F6 Pro to have a much worse camera, it really didn't. When you look at the bigger picture, they're much more evenly matched, though if you do want a point and shoot stills camera, the Pixel AA definitely wins out there. As for performance and specs, the Pixel AA comes with either 128 or 256 gigabytes of UFS 3.1 storage. The Poco F6 Pro, meanwhile, smashes that with 256, 512 or 1 terabyte of faster UFS 4.0 storage. It also has up to double the RAM. The Pixel AA has 8 gigabytes, the F6 Pro has 12 gigabytes in its lower capacity models and 16 gigabytes in the 1 terabyte version. And so for gaming, this is a very easy round. The Tensor G3 and the Pixel AA throttles quite early, so you can't play back games at sky-high graphic settings. The screen's also smaller in size, so it just isn't as immersive and fun to play on. And the lower storage capacity will hold you back installing ginormous games. The Poco F6 Pro Snapdragon 8 Gen 2, however, is seriously powerful for the price. The phone does get hot with performance mode active and graphics settings ramped up, but you can manage the heat by either toggling graphics down or switching off performance mode, or both. I gamed for hours on the Poco F6 Pro and I really enjoyed it. Throttling's less aggressive than 8S Gen 3 phones like the Honor 200, so I got a smoother gaming experience. It's also a great pairing for the Backbone controller if you're running emulators, streaming apps like PS5, Remote Play, etc. And for some context, the F6 Pro played back Genshin with the new highest graphics settings option turned on and took about 15 minutes to warm up, half an hour to 40 minutes to start to get uncomfortable, but when I lowered the graphics settings it cooled down relatively quickly and I could just carry on playing. Benchmarks also reflect this. The Pixel AA's Wildlife Extreme Stress Test and all the benchmarks on 3D Mark fall right behind the Poco F6 Pro. And Geekbench, it was a similar story, with the Poco scoring 5,230 multi-core, while the Pixel 8a scored 4,171. But while the Poco F6 Pro is a clear winner for gamers and anyone who needs pure power, the Pixel AA takes the win with its stock Android interface and the promise of 7 years of software updates. Poco's promise of 3 years of software updates, 4 years of security updates is not great. It's not terrible, but it's kind of the lower end of what we'd expect at the price. So Google's phone is more future-proofed from a software point of view, but flipping the argument on its head, you could also say that from a hardware point of view, the F6 Pro is actually more future-proofed. It gives you extra storage. Its chipset is more powerful as well. So it's important to weigh up both when considering how long you want to keep your phone. What you can't argue with though is the stock Android on the Pixel A being much more enjoyable to use than Xiaomi's HyperOS. At a base level, it's less busy. There's no wallpaper carousel. Xiaomi App Store bloatware to uninstall. Left side, right side, notification, pull down, toggle things, and changing the wallpaper doesn't pull up a request for you to accept cookies because you don't have to go through a themes app on the Pixel AA. You just get a simple, clean interface. Google also loads up a load of AI features, from Magic Eraser to its quality voice transcriber, circle to search introduced on the Galaxy S24, and smart translations to name a few. These aren't just gimmicks, they're actually useful, which makes this comparison pretty neck and neck, all things considered, if you really value these kinds of features. Battery life across both phones was also comparable, but the Pixel AA edges ahead, lasting a bit longer. Despite its smaller 4,492 milliamp battery, it has a smaller screen and throttling happens faster. So between those two, you can explain that battery difference, but both phones last a comfortable day and creep into 2 days if you're using them moderately, with a 5,000 milliamp battery in the Poco F6 Pro being perfectly adequate. The Poco F6 Pro ships with a charger as well, and it charges much more quickly, while the Pixel AA caps out at 18 watts and charges in around 1 hour and 20 minutes. The Poco F6 Pro charges at 120 watts, powering up in under half an hour. The Pixel AA does have wireless charging, 7.5 watts, so pretty slow, and the Poco F6 Pro doesn't, but someone like me, I'd actually prefer quick bouts of fast charging to keep my phone battery between 20 to 80% rather than wireless charging and super slow wired charging, but you might prefer wireless charging for an overnight charge next to your bedside. So if you couldn't tell, I really like both phones, but I lean towards the Poco F6 Pro because it just fits into my lifestyle that bit better. I'm a geek with gigabytes of games and I love that bigger screen. Plus the fact that F6 Pro's camera isn't as bad as I was expecting is a real win. That said, I'd find the Pixel AA easier to recommend to less geeky users. If I was giving this phone to someone, I've already said a parent, a routine, the Pixel's a more polished package. Its design's also more playful and fun, and the more reliable stills camera is what most people will use most often. Plus, I cannot argue with the smart AI features included. And with this comparison done, I hope it's helped you decide between the Google Pixel 8a and the Poco F6 Pro. If it has and you've decided to pick one up, let me know which one and what swung it for you. Also, if you like the video, click that thumbs up button, subscribe to the channel and ding that bell to get notified when a new video drops. Keep an eye on the communities tab because that's where I will be posting polls so you can decide what video I make next. Thanks for watching.